Let us come to order. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilor Romero Worth. Salute to the flag by Councilor Villarreal, and then an invocation from Councilor Ives. Please stand.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know, as always, I ask for the considered deliberation of this body based upon the information that is presented to us, that information be complete as to the matters which are brought forward, that we treat each other with civility and respect, and focus on the issues and arguments relating to those issues as opposed to personalities and other extraneous information. With that said, I know there are a number of folks who we are holding in our hearts this evening, and I will take the liberty of identifying four simply as that have been in my mind. Of course, our thoughts and prayers and love go out to Councilor Harris and his family on the loss of his mother. It's an experience many of us have been through, and there is nothing that makes it easier or less painful. And when we hear of others who have that experience, it makes it all too fresh, and certainly in my mind, and I imagine many others. A member of our community, Joe Castellano, passed away recently. We have he and his family in my thoughts and prayers, and our thoughts and prayers. Also, Ricardo Vasquez, a friend here in town, passed away recently. And then at a far too young an age, a classmate of mine at Georgetown, Diego Zamora, passed away. And it was getting to know Diego and getting to know Santa Fe through Diego in my first visit to Santa Fe in 1982, where I had the pleasure of spending time with he and his family, including his younger brother Gino. He is a wonderful attorney and is deeply missed by those who knew him and those in the legal community. For whom else shall we pray, or if anybody would like to say more about those individuals?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councilor. I know as a councilor, as a council, as a governing body, and as a city, we've all felt the pain this week of shootings around the country. Misdirected actions toward former elected officials and current elected officials in this country. Those are extremely painful, I know, for us personally, and I know that they're very painful for this entire city family. And I would ask that when we have a moment of silence, that we send peace and our heartful embrace to those communities, and know that we suffer together on these things.
I just want to give well wishes to one of our police officers, Michael Demas, who underwent some very serious surgery today and is apparently on the road to recovery, and so we wish him well.
I would add my voice, Councillor Ives, to your thoughts about Councillor Harris and his family. I know how close he was with his mother. He went back to her 89th birthday recently and was so excited to be able to celebrate that. And I know it's hard, and we care deeply for him and his family, also for the Zamora family. And as Councillor Lindell mentioned, these horrific shootings, bomb packages, expressions of hatred and violence, anti-Semitism, anti-immigration sentiment have no place in our country and in our city. I had the great honor of being at a community-wide memorial service at Temple Beth Shalom on Sunday, and our police were there to make people feel safe. The Interfaith Alliance was there to make people feel comforted. Senator Udall was there, Congressman Ben Ray Lujan was there, Congresswoman Lujan Grisham was there, and I think this community really distinguishes itself because it leads with its heart. And I'm very grateful for that and very appreciative, and I think we are continuing to send the right messages, and so I'm very saddened by what happens and very gratified by our community's response to it. With that, I think a moment of silence would be appropriate. Please call the roll.
Mayor Weber,
Here.
Councillor Abeyta,
Here.
Councillor Harris, Councillor Ives,
Here.
Councillor Lindell, Councillor Rivera, Councillor Romero Worth,
Here.
Councillor Vihel Coppler,
Here.
Councillor Villarreal.
Present.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you very much. I'm trying to find my packet, so hang on a second. I got nothing. Go back to paper for a minute while my technology team here attempts to find my packets. We are looking at the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Not voting. The agenda is approved. How about the consent calendar? Are there items to pull or a motion to approve?
Move to,
Whoop, Councilor Rivera.
I'd like to pull item M and also P for just a brief question.
N and P.
M is in Mary.
Oh,
and
Mary, I'm sorry. Thank
P
you.
is in Paul.
Thank you. Any other changes to the consent calendar? If not, is there a motion to approve as amended?
motion to approve as amended.
Second.
All right. Can we please call the roll?
Councillor Abeyta,
Yes.
Councillor Ives,
Yes.
Councillor Lindell. Yes. Councillor Rivera,
Yes.
Councillor Romero Worth,
Yes.
Councillor Vihel Coppler,
Yes.
Councillor Villarreal.
Yes.
Mayor Weber.
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Very good. Minutes from the October 10th regular meeting of the City Council. Amendments or a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Is there a second? All right. All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. Not voting, the minutes are approved. Presentations. Do we have presentations tonight? We don't have presentations tonight. What we have is item M on the consent calendar. I turn to you, Councilor Rivera.
Thank you, Mayor. No questions on this. I just pulled it because I wanted to be able to
Get a vote on it?
vote against it and just say that personally, I appreciate all the work that Councilor Romero Worth, Councilor Abeyta, Councilor Lindell did on this and making the changes. However, I personally feel it defeats really what public campaign financing was designed to do, and that's keep money out of the races, out of the politics of the whole thing. And because the Supreme Court said that PACs can't be prohibited from contributing. Now we're saying that because of that, let's contribute more money on the public side if people need it as the race gets towards the end and tighter. And again, I just don't feel that's why public campaign financing was set up, and I'll be voting against it for that reason. Thank you.
And to be fair, you had voted against it previously, so you're simply being consistent in your voting record here.
Yes, sir.
Other comments on this item?
So this is just a request to publish.
Yeah, but we
Just-
need to.
Just so we're clear that we're not actually.
We're not voting on it as an item. We are
Correct.
voting.
Correct. I just want to be clear about that.
Okay.
Move for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Can we call the roll?
Counselor Ives?
He's-
Okay.
Point of order, the motion was to...
Plug in your computer. The motion was to approve.
Yes.
Counselor Lindell? Yes. Counselor Rivera?
No.
Counselor Romero Worth? Yes. Counselor Vihel Coppler?
Yes?
Counselor Villarreal?
Yes.
Counselor Abeyta?
Yes.
Mayor Weber?
Yes,
The motion has been approved.
thank you. And we move to item P as in Paul. Councilor Rivera, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Josh, when this came up at Finance Committee, there were quite a bit more changes that needed to be approved by I believe it was the party that we're contracting with, and I don't find that those changes are still in here. I do see a area on the side with one minor change that was initialed by our attorneys. So just wondering what happened to those other changes. Did they?
Does that work there? Mr. Mayor, Councilor Rivera, we do have those that additional memo here that we'd like to hand out as a point of reference.
Hello.
Are there memos for others, or is just a special memo for only Councilor Rivera? I feel a little left out here. I'm not taking it personally, but I'm just,
Hi, while Joshua is passing them out, my name is Yodel Katnak. I'm in IT department, and what he's passing out is the vendor and legal had one other small red line that they did agree. So you're seeing the first page of the addendum. On the first paragraph, the last sentence, our legal did cross out just a small portion about the 12 months. And the vendor did agree, and they initialed and sent it back to me, but it was after our deadline to submit everything to city clerk. So this is just a small change. On the memo that we were addressing, your concerns, Councilor Rivera, was on page 25, I believe. There was some red lines. They did a clean copy, and that's why the packet actually has the full clean version. And then we had this last change that we wanted to make sure everyone understood that both vendor and city legal was in agreement.
All right, and those, the clean copy on page 25, I assume it was agreed to by all parties, and this is the version that they've all agreed to?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I had. Mr. Mayor, I'll move for approval.
thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Can we call the roll, please?
Counselor Lindell? Yes. Counselor Rivera?
Yes.
Counselor Romero Worth?
Yes.
Counselor Vihel Coppler?
Yes?
Counselor Villarreal?
Yes.
Counselor Abeyta?
Yes.
Counselor Ives?
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Thank you very much. We move now to item 11. Are there any matters from the city manager?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, that was good timing. Thanks for doing that well. One item that I'd like to bring up, just a reminder, the legislative priorities started last night, 2 nights ago at Public Works. After many discussions with you all, that is the beginning of the formal process. You still have the opportunity to weigh in and make changes. This is a work in progress. I believe it's heard at Finance on November 19th and Council December 12th. So as we go through the processes, please feel free to reach out to me with any issues, additions or subtractions you might have, or Jesse Guillen. We'll also put a formal plan into place for how to communicate once the session starts. So that will be different and clear once it begins. But just wanted to make it very clear to you all that this is a work in progress, and don't feel shy about reaching out to me. That's it, Mayor.
Thank you. Are there any matters from the city attorney?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I have a few matters, and if one of the councilors would like to make a motion to go into an executive session, those matters relate to subsections H5, 7, and 8 of the Open Meetings Act, Section 10-15-1, specifically discussion of collective bargaining strategy, discussion regarding disposal of real property, and discussion of litigation to which the city is or may become a party.
Councilor Rivera?
I make a motion that the governing body go into executive session to discuss those matters listed on the agenda as recommended by the city attorney.
Second.
Okay.
Councilor Rivera?
Yes.
Councilor Romero Worth?
Yes.
Councilor Vigil Koppler? Yes. Councilor Villarreal? Yes. Councilor Abeyta?
Yes.
Councilor Ives?
Yes.
Councilor Lindell? Yes. Mayor Weber?
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Thank you. We will move into executive session now to take up these matters and return once that has been completed. Thank you very much. Okay, let's go do this.
Let's go do this thing.
You ready to play ball? Chair recognizes Councilor Rivera to do his duty.
Are we all here, man?
Enough of us.
Thank you. I move that the governing body come out of executive session stating for the record that the discussion in executive session was limited to the matters noted on the agenda.
Second.
All right, can we call the roll on that item?
Councilor Romero Worth? Yes. Councilor Vihel Coppler?
Yes.
Councilor Villarreal?
She's currently indisposed.
Councilor Abeyta?
He's also indisposed.
Councilor Ives?
Yes.
Councilor Lindell? Councilor Rivera?
Yes.
Mayor Weber?
Yes.
Motion has been approved.
Thank you. Let us turn our attention to item 13, which is a request for approval of a 6-month lease of the Garson Studios. I don't know if Mr. Moody is going to...
Motion to approve.
Oh, well, in that case, we have a motion to approve.
Second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? No? Okay, can we call the roll?
Yes. Councilor Vihel Coppler?
Yes.
Councilor Villarreal? Councilor Abeyta? Councilor Ives?
Yes.
Councilor Lindell?
Yes.
Councilor Rivera? Councilor Romero Worth?
Yes.
Mayor Weber?
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Thank you. Item 14, request for approval to join the litigation discussed during executive session.
I would move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor, was back to the city attorney, I believe the language should have stopped after as a party to the litigation, and from there on delete any legal services or contract language. Is that correct?
Mr. Mayor, Councilor Rivera, I would make that recommendation, yes.
So could you read the request as amended, please?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Request for approval to join the litigation discussed during executive session, either as an amici or as a party to the litigation.
Move for approval.
Second.
Okay, so the approval is of this amended request. Could you please call the roll then?
Yes, sir. Counselor Villarreal, Counselor Abeyta.
Yes.
Okay. Counselor Ives, yes. Okay, Counselor Lindell, Counselor Rivera,
Yes.
Counselor Romero Worth,
Yes.
Counselor Vihel Coppler,
Yes.
Mayor Weber.
Yes.
Motion has been approved.
Thank you. Are there any matters from the city clerk?
No, sir, no matters from the city clerk.
I will entertain communications from the governing body, starting with Councilor Vihel Coppler.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to indicate that Councilor Romero Worth and I and yourself, we attended Coffee with the Cop last week and appreciate the comments by the police officers and their graciousness and the graciousness of the police chief. And I think we learned a lot, and it was good to do that. And I understand from the chief that this is going to be happening every so often, so I encourage, it's not just for the counselors, but it's for the public as well. We had several public interacting with the police officers, and I think it creates a lot of goodwill, and I enjoyed doing that. Secondly, I want to commend the city employees for their efforts today in dressing up for the Halloween contest. They had a little shindig here at the noon hour, and their outfits were totally cool and very creative, very imaginative. And we, Councilor Lindell, the mayor, and I served as judges, and some other, I think Eric did, and the parks director, and so they won a little bit of money, first, second, and third, and it was a very nice event, and they went all out, and they're to be commended. So thank you.
Thank you very much. We're going in order, so Councilor Abeyta, you have anything? Councilor Rivera, you have anything?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I am introducing an ordinance concerning the municipal wastewater utility system of the city of Santa Fe. I don't think you want me to read it all, right?
I think you can summarize.
I'd also like to join as a co-sponsor on the mayor's introduction of a resolution tonight, as well as Councilor Harris's and Councilor Villarreal's. And I think that's it for now.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Villarreal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to introduce a resolution in support of the appropriation of funds by the New Mexico legislature for the New Mexico Grown Fresh Fruits and Fresh Vegetables for School Meals program and related education programs. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else for the good of the order from you, my friend? No, let's go down to the other. We'll start at that, and we'll work back to you. You're a big chief. No, you're good to go. Councilor Ives?
Yes, got it. On behalf of, first on behalf of Councilor Harris, in absentia, I would introduce his measure, which a number of us have already signed on as co-sponsors, but a resolution promoting the preservation and care of the College of Santa Fe art collection by promoting an active loan program to ensure public access to and educational opportunities with said collection. And then I am introducing an ordinance, and I know Councilor Romero Worth is joining as a co-sponsor, but relating to the City of Santa Fe Economic Development Plan Ordinance, approving and adopting a local economic development project participation agreement between the City of Santa Fe and Marty's Meals for lease payments for the expansion of a new headquarters and manufacturing facility, a local economic development project. I would also join in the measure that you, Mr. Mayor, are introducing, and I would also join in Councilor Rivera's ordinance, as well as Councilor Villarreal's resolution.
Very good, thank you. Councilor Lindell.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to join on the resolution introduced by the mayor and also the ordinance sponsored by Councilor Ives. Thank you.
Any other comments for the good of the order? No. All right. I have a couple things real quickly. A resolution I'm introducing urging the New Mexico legislature to adopt legislation allowing for the development of community shared solar projects by municipalities. I also want to briefly talk about, if I have your permission, the press conference that we held this morning regarding the very important implementation of our ERP program. There is posted now on the city's website a full packet of the handouts that we used this morning that go, the items in here go over everything from the corrective action plan that we've developed to rectify problems with the implementation of ERP as identified by our consultant who gave us a very in-depth assessment of where we are with this essential program, and also a set of suggestions on how to correct problems that have occurred, many of which stem from the original management structure that was adopted in the beginning for the oversight of this project. We will be, among other things, changing the fundamental management structure to make it clear that we have an on-site program manager. We'll be establishing a comprehensive timeline and a budget so that there's a through line to all of the component parts, but we can see them all as a coherent program. We'll be evaluating the role of our consultant, Barry Dunn, going forward. We will be identifying clear staff roles and making the staff's responsibilities much more clear and clearly stated. We'll set priorities for which must-have projects we will implement, adopt a critical path management approach where we have gates and milestones for each of the components as we implement them. We will be also looking through our IT department at a citywide technology plan that this needs to be a part of. And finally, we'll continue the kind of assessments that we did over the last month to make sure that we are on track, on budget, and implementing what needs to be done. I think there are a number of important things to be said, not the least of which was a comment that the city manager made this morning, really praising our city department heads and our city staff for their courage in the work they've done to date, and also in the scrutiny that they were willing to undergo in the course of this what's called an IV&V report. It's really difficult to let yourself be put under a microscope like that and then have the results made public. And our department heads were praised and our staff were praised by the consultant for the honesty, candor, transparency, and clarity with which they participated in this assessment. And without their courageous participation, we would not be able to come up with a corrective action plan. So I encourage you to read that the packet that's on the city's website and take a look at the both the assessment, but perhaps more importantly, the corrective action plan that we are moving forward with already to take on what is, I think, identified in the McHarg report and in all of our minds as perhaps the most fundamentally important upgrade and improvement to the way the city operates going forward. And I'm happy to visit with each of you about that independently to go over what the press conference covered. But I think we were pretty clear and pretty honest and exhaustive and transparent in assessing ourselves and also identifying the corrective action plan to get this program back on track. So that would conclude my remarks under the afternoon session, and I think since it's 7:10, we're ready to begin the evening session. And I would begin, unless I'm coached by my strong right hand, I would begin with petitions from the floor. So this is the time where if you have a petition from the floor, please come to the front of the room. We will have 2 minutes for anyone who wishes to address the governing body on a matter of importance that they'd like to identify. You're either stretching or getting ready to come up to the front of the room. Or both. Thank you, Councilor Ives. So we're going to start the clock. You have about 2 minutes to give us your best thoughts. You go 2 minutes.
Total?
That's it.
Okay. My name is Andrea Tate de Caldera. And we're having an issue. Recently, I sent a couple of letters, and I know that you got them, and I realize that it's private road, but I am asking that we're going to try to move forward to see what we can do to have them taken by the city so that we can get through the situation. It's gotten progressively worse, and today's super, super bad. So I would just hope that that everyone does help us to, to get this taken care of. Next. State your name, please. Andrea Tate de Caldera. The next thing that I would like to address is the situation that we're having down on the plaza. Having a lot of crime on the plaza. We're having a lot of situations. We had a woman that was robbed this past week, and that's just amongst a few of the things. There's been a lot of people antagonizing one another and such, and I really think that if you I realize that we're short on police, which is something that really needs to be taken care of and attended to, because it's gotten to the point where the city's a very dangerous place, and the plaza should not be left, out. It's the center of town. We need an officer there all the time, every day. It's not, it's where all the tourists come to see and, and to be and to spend their money, and you're placing the public in a really sketchy situation. So I would hope that you would keep an officer there at all times, but I would also hope that you help the Santa Fe Police Department and start taking care of our first responders, as we also have in the back here with the fire department, and make them a priority in this city.
You beat the clock.
I can think of more.
No, you're fine. We don't need to fill the time we have. Are there others who wish to speak? If you want to save time, you can line up right now and you take your turn.
Good evening. My name is Eric Heinrich, and my concern, I live over in the Los Solares subdivision, and like Nava Ade, we have no parking on one side of the street, except that people repeatedly park there. I've called the Santa Fe Police Department at least a dozen times. Nothing gets done. Now, my concern is, if you've been up that way on Ojos Verdes, they're fairly narrow streets. If people are parked on both sides of the street, an emergency vehicle will not be able to get through. A fire engine, ambulance. So unless you want a lawsuit for someone who's either seriously injured or dies because an emergency vehicle can't get through, then you really need to do something about this problem. It's been going on for months. I've spent the last year or so, every so often I call the police, I let them know which vehicles it is. Sometimes they come out, most of the time they don't. And it really is a very serious problem. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else who wishes to be heard at this time? Okay. We move to appointments. And we have 3 different sets of appointments. For the Parks and Recreation, I guess we do these individually, right? Parks and Recreation Advisory Commission, Laura Lee Freilich and Joseph E. Cosby. Is there a motion to make this appointment?
Move to approve.
Or a question?
I would second, and noted the auspicious college attendance of Mr. Cosby, given today is Halloween. He attended Transylvania University. So, very timely.
Very eye-catching university. This is a voice vote. All those in favor of making these 2 appointments say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Not voting, the appointments are made. The Mayor's Youth Advisory Board. We have, again, 2 appointments filling unexpired terms, William Hare and Diego Montoya. Are there questions, comments, or a motion?
I would second and appreciated the resumes that these students have attached.
Yes, it's very useful to see who we're appointing, and it's good of them to step up. All those in favor of making these appointments say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Not voting, the appointments are passed. Finally, we have 2 reappointments to the Library Board, Rebecca R. Phillips and Marie Shao. Questions, comments, or a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Not voting, the motion carries. Thank you very much, I appreciate it. We move to public hearings. And you want to walk us through some of these requests, please?
Item H1 is a request from Santa Fe Craft Cider for a wine wholesaler liquor license. Currently, the wine wholesaler liquor license, there is a wine wholesaler liquor license at this location. The location is not within 300 feet of a church or school. And because there is new ownership of this business, the new liquor license application is required. Staff does not anticipate a substantial change in litter and noise or any unacceptable traffic impacts due to approval of this request. As a condition of doing a business in the city, staff is recommending that it be noted that the applicant is required to comply with all of the city's ordinances.
Okay. Public hearing. Anyone who wishes to be heard? I see no one, in which case we will close the public hearing.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Could you call the roll?
Yes, sir. Counselor Abeyta?
Yes.
Counselor Ives?
Yes.
Counselor Lindell?
Yes.
Counselor Rivera?
Yes.
Counselor Romero Worth?
Yes.
Counselor Vihel Coppler?
Yes.
Counselor Villarreal?
Yes.
Mayor Weber?
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Thank you. Could you take us through item number 2, please?
Yes, sir. Same applicant, Santa Fe Craft Cider, is requesting a wine grower liquor license with on-premise consumption and package sales to be located at Santa Fe Cider Works, 4363 Center Place, Unit 9. Originally, the application did include patio service. However, the Alcohol and Gaming Division removed patio service from the application after discovering that this was an error. Currently, there is a wine grower license there at the location, but since there will be new ownership of the business, a new liquor license application is required. The location is not within 300 feet of a church or school. Again, staff reports are in your packet, and staff does not anticipate a substantial change in litter and noise or any unacceptable traffic impacts. As a condition of doing business in the city, staff is recommending that it be noted that the applicant is required to comply with all of the city's ordinances.
Very good. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to be heard on this matter? In that case, we will close the public hearing part and entertain a motion.
I would move to approve with the conditions recommended.
Good. Second.
Counselor Ives?
Yes.
Counselor Lindell? Counselor Rivera? Counselor Romero Worth?
Yes.
Counselor Vihel Coppler?
Yes.
Counselor Villarreal?
Yes.
Counselor Abeyta?
Yes.
Mayor Weber?
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Thank you. And now we move to item H3.
Okay, so this is a request for a waiver of the 300-foot location restriction and approval to allow the dispensing consumption of alcohol at Descartes Labs, 100 North Guadalupe Street. Mix Santa Fe has submitted a request for a waiver of the 300-foot location restriction to allow for the dispensing consumption of alcohol at a Mix Santa Fe event to be held at Descartes Labs. This is for Thursday, November 15th, 2018, with alcohol service from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. And this location is within 300 feet of the Shrine of Our Lady of Guadalupe Church, 417 Agua Fria Street. Reverend Dennis M. Garcia, pastor of the Shrine of Our Lady of Guadalupe Church, has expressed no opposition in a letter which is attached in your packet.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
This is a public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to be heard on this item? I see no one, and therefore we'll close the public hearing part of the proceedings. Is there a motion?
I would move to approve and also ask if there were any conditions to be imposed.
No, staff did not impose any conditions.
So, yeah.
Please call the roll.
Counselor Lindell? Yes. Counselor Rivera? Yes. Counselor Romero Worth?
Yes.
Counselor Vigil Coppler?
Yes.
Counselor Villarreal?
Yes.
Counselor Abeyta?
Yes.
Counselor Ives?
Yes.
Mayor Weber?
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Thank you. Let's turn to item H4, which is our GRT-backed bond issue. And I think, Bradley, are you going to speak to this? It is a public hearing. You might want to kick it off, however.
Okay. Mayor, councilors, before you is a bond ordinance for the issuance of $20 million of senior lien GRT bonds. This has been through Public Works. It's been through the Finance Committee, and both been approved. We do have a change within the mix of the bond projects that was approved at both Finance and Public Works. I have copies of the memo explaining this change. We're reallocating 1.5 million to the Southside Fire Station, and we are taking that 1.5 million from the Public Safety Radio project.
So just to be clear, we're living within our $20 million structure, but we have reallocated 1.5 million from one project to another within that structure.
That is correct.
This is a public hearing, so let's hear from the public before we go to questions from the council. Is there anyone who wishes to speak to this measure from the public as part of this hearing? Okay, are there any questions from the council to members of the city staff? Yes, sir, Councilor Ives.
Not so much a question because it is covered in the memo, but you noted that funds are being shifted within two projects that are already in the measure. One, so that we can cover the full cost of the new fire station, which we are required to build. But it would be worth mentioning the impact on the emergency radio system and how we were able to reduce that cost and yet maintain the same level of the system based upon state price agreements. So if you wouldn't mind just addressing that point, that would be great.
At this time, if Chief Babcock?
Mr. Mayor, Councilor Ives, the way we were able to do it is our initial numbers were coming from an RFP that we would have to go out. We've had several vendors come in to say that they are in the state pricing agreement where we're able to reduce the cost and keep the level of the upgrade that we're trying to obtain.
And I just simply didn't want to leave people with the impression that we were robbing that system and not going to have a good system in order to build the firehouse. We'll actually be able to accomplish both with that available funding and this shift in funding.
Mr. Mayor, Councilor Ives, that is correct. We're not downgrading anything in the public radio safety system. It's just because of the vendors on the state pricing agreement.
That was my only question, and I would certainly move to approve.
Oh, wait, we have another question.
Sorry.
Yeah, Chief, you know, we had met about the size of the building, the cost. So $6 million, though it's closer to your goal, it still meant cutting some things out from the fire station. Can you tell me what you cut out?
Mr. Mayor, Councilor Rivera, the initial cut would be our training tower as well as our hose drying tower. That would be our first cutout. The price of this project is coming in about $400 per square foot. That was the first one that we'd like to cut out if we had to cut out anything. The other things that we are looking at and we're still trying to figure out to get us to the $6 million mark, we look at cutting 2 dormitory rooms, 2 additional bathrooms, and the last thing that we'd like to cut out, if possible not cut out at all, is our third bay area, just because we need the storage for our apparatus.
Okay. Way back in the day, we had some impact fees that were in the city that were brought out by, new projects that were being built, and those impact fees sat there for times like this where you needed that extra funding for equipment or radios or whatever. Is that funding still available?
Mr. Mayor, Councilor Rivera, myself as well as Finance Director Mayor McCoy are looking at that right now. The initial investigation to this, there's about $100,000, but we're still making sure that that number is accurate and that the money is still there.
Mayor, councilors, we do have an update that staff provided this afternoon. There's $148,000 in the fire impact fee and $2.5 million in the road impact fee. So the next steps would be to look at these two sources and the legal restrictions around them to see what potential sources we could pull from to supplement.
Could the road impact fee be used for some of the infrastructure then that has really elevated from the 4.5? I think the infrastructure was going to be about 1.2 million.
Mr. Mayor, Councilor Rivera, that's what we will be looking into. And you're correct, it is about 1.2 million for the infrastructure costs.
Okay. And I too, Chief Babcock, just want to make sure that you're not putting yourself out there when you talk about the radio system.
Mr. Mayor, Councilor Rivera, myself and Larry Rolstaff from IT Department have talked to 3 different vendors to get our numbers down to where we are all on state pricing agreement. So we're confident that we could make our radio system and not downgrade with anything that we're trying to implement initially, and we are confident we can make it happen.
Okay.
Do you have more? No. If I could speak to the director for a second. Again, I don't want to lead the witness particularly, although I do want to lead the witness. But anyway, and when you start that way, you obviously do want to lead the witness. But I think the point that the counselor is making is a good one, which is we have a $20 million issue. But that is not to say that if we were looking at building for example, the fire station, and we discovered that we needed to try to source other revenue, we are not prohibited from doing that simply because this is being done as a bond issue. Is that correct?
Mr. Mayor, that is correct, and that is our plan going forward, to be able to look at all sources of revenue and identify the best source of revenue for each of the investments that we're making going forward.
Thank you. I just wanted to be clear that we're not trying to prevent investments. We are simply trying to make sure that within this particular bond issue, we are sticking to our sense of what is a prudent and correct amount of dollars to be going out to market with. Thank you. Any other questions? Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Could you please call the roll on this?
Yes, sir. Councilor Rivera?
Yes.
Councilor Romero Worth?
Yes.
Councilor Vihel Coppler?
Yes.
Councilor Villarreal?
Yes, and I'd like to co-sponsor.
Okay. Councilor Abeyta?
Yes.
Councilor Ives?
Yes.
Councilor Lindell? Mayor Weber?
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
And before we go any further, I just want to salute our very remarkable, hardworking team that has put this together. I think it's fair to say that I can't remember a package, a program, a series of investment efforts that were put together and explained with the level of detail and clarity and thoroughness that you did, the entire team that did it. It includes Parks and Rec and Public Works, it includes Finance, it includes all of the affected, fire, obviously, IT. You walk through this program and it is very, very impressive, and I really want to tip my hat to everyone who put in the long work, the hard hours to make the numbers work, to make the projects make sense, to showcase where the investments would go, and to identify the benefits to the public from this kind of a investment program. So I really want to congratulate and thank you all for your work. Item 4A is a separate item, also a public hearing, but Bradley, you might want to kick it off.
Councilor, mayors, mayor, councilors.
How many of us are there? Oh, wait, I'm sorry.
We had solicited through an RFQ process request for qualifications of various underwriters. The underwriter is a service provider to the city, but they do not work for the city, they work for the bond buyers. We solicited an RFQ, we received approximately 8 responses. Staff evaluated each responses with our bond counsel and our municipal advisor, and with that, we are making the recommendation that RBC Capital Markets be the senior managing bond underwriter and Piper Jaffray as a co-underwriter. Their total interest cost, and this is what one of our primary measures, came in at 3.07% and 3.08%. So these two were clearly the best candidates. They're both very large, successful underwriters and Wall Street firms, and we believe that we'll be in very good hands. This is going to be a negotiated sale with them, and if you have any questions on a negotiated sale, we have our bond counsel with us, and we also have our municipal advisor. So if you have any questions, they'll be happy to answer any of them for you.
Okay, this is a public hearing, so there may be people who are in the room who would like to be heard on this matter. There may not be. Are there questions from the council?
Move for approval.
Second. Could you please call the roll?
Yes. Councilor Romero Worth.
Yes.
Councilor Vihil Coppler.
Yes.
Councilor Villarreal.
Yes.
Councilor Abeyta.
Yes.
Councilor Ives.
Yes.
Councilor Lindell. Councilor Rivera. Mayor Weber.
Yes.
Motion has been approved.
Thank you to our finance department and to our support team. We move to item 5, consideration of a bill number 2018-21. Councilor Villarreal, you want to say something about this, or do you want to take us through it, please? Just give us a quick overview, and then we'll open it up for a public hearing.
Thank you, Mayor and Councilors. The item before you has been recommended for approval by the Finance Committee, the Public Works Subcommittee, the Planning Commission, and the Land Use staff. We drafted this in response to concerns that were brought to us by citizens who own single-family dwellings in industrial districts. Those are now classified as non-conforming uses and are prohibited from expansion. We have drafted a proposal for a limited expansion of single-family dwellings in industrial districts and C2 districts. With that brief summary, we've provided some background in the staff report with regard to the number of units that would be affected, relatively small. We handle maybe one case in this category each year, a very small exception that's being proposed to this. And I'll respond to questions from the council.
Okay, let's see if there are any people in the audience who would like to testify on this matter. Are there questions from the council or statements about this particular piece of legislation?
I would like to say thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate that staff came up with the solution to a problem that probably more people have experienced, but in this case, the Garcia family was following the rules, and they were consistently inconvenienced by us by thinking that they could complete their project and then realizing months later that they were not allowed to be able to add on to their home to have one of their daughters live with them. So I just wanted to personally apologize on behalf of the city that you had to go through this, and I appreciate the current staff being able to find a solution, because I think the precedent was set by, and I wanted to correct myself from the past situation where I said that the staff screwed up. It was one particular staff person that made a decision to allow a property, a residential property, get to add on to their home without any hoops like this family had to go through. So that staff person is no longer at the city, and I just wanted to commend the staff for thinking of a solution. I think we need to have another long-term solution, as I said in one of the committees, that there may be that we look at rezoning districts that never were really, they may have been in the past industrial, but they currently don't function in that way. So I I hope that we can work on that, and I'm happy to help in any way. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments? I would just second what Councilor Villarreal just said. I think we have come up with a very creative solution to this particular problem, but the larger issue has to do with the zoning of the city and the fact that we really haven't done a hard look at much of our zoning across the city for quite a while in a comprehensive way. And so we can fix things as they crop up, but the truth is that there are a lot of things that they don't crop up or we don't hear about them. And so a much more thoughtful and proactive approach toward zoning, which I know Director Johnson has thought about and the department is looking, or the land use department's looking into going forward. This is a reminder that we have work to do more than simply problem solving in the small instance we're dealing with right now. It is a solution, but it suggests a larger requirement going forward. So thank you. Any other questions or comments? Is there a motion?
I'd like to move to approve.
Second.
Do I need a number? 2018-26. 26.
All right.
Second.
Now he seconds it.
Second.
Can we please call the roll?
Councilor Vihel Coppler?
Yes.
Councilor Villarreal?
Yes.
Councilor Abeyta?
Yes.
Councilor Ives?
Yes.
Councilor Lindell? Councilor Rivera? Councilor Romero Worth?
Yes.
Mayor Weber?
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Thank you. That brings us to item 6. And I believe that our land use director, Carol Johnson, is here to speak to this.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. This item tonight is a reconsideration of 3 different items, but it's just one condition. It's case 2018-48, which is the Los Solares Lot 11B General Plan Amendment, case 2018-49, Los Solares Lot 11B rezoning, and case 2018-50, Los Solares Master Plan Amendment. One of the representatives of the applicant for these 3 projects reviewed condition number 1. It was crafted with all the best intentions by staff to address the dust issues that are common in that area and in Santa Fe during construction in the windy seasons. And in looking at that, we discovered that there were some issues in terms of how the language was written. Would staff be able to understand it, implement it consistently, and would future generations of planners and developers understand when it does and doesn't apply? Staff was supportive in that instance of the reconsideration of the condition, and Mr. Sieberts who drafted the initial version, then the city attorney and myself reviewed it and made a few adjustments. But we believe it's a much improved situation. It clarifies the parcels to which the condition applies, which was not the case initially. It clarifies the submittal requirements for the Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan. It identifies the responsibility and timing for monitoring wind conditions, and then what actions are required by the developer and the city if wind conditions reach a certain speed. It also talks about the level of opacity, which is basically that when the visibility is obstructed by blowing wind, what is that threshold? There's a best management practices document from the state of Michigan that is attached to this condition to provide guidance for both the applicant and for staff. And then finally, it differentiates between ongoing construction and when grading happens and things stop for about 2 weeks. So we think with all these changes, it's going to be a much better condition and will make it much clearer for the roles and responsibilities of both staff and the developer. With that, I stand for any questions.
Let's hit the pause button. We have a public hearing. If anyone wishes to be heard, now is the time to speak up. I think you need to be identified and sworn. You think you can do it within 3 minutes?
Yes.
Thank you.
Hello again. You need to state your name. Yep. Hello again, Eric Heinrich, and I have several concerns. One is with the so-called disturbed soil issue. For months, we've had dust storms. It's Doesn't just affect us, it affects the folks down in Nava Ade. I've met people who live there, and they ask me, what's going on? Why are we getting all this dust? There are vacant lots still. Now, Pulte has moved on to additional areas of the subdivision, yet they still haven't sold some of the lots in the original section, which is where I live, which is why this is of a concern to me. Okay? So I have very strong concern about that. Now, may I speak to B and C as well? Sure. Okay? When you talk about density, now it says 21 dwelling units. If we're talking about individual homes, that is extremely high density. Okay? You're talking about less than 5 100.
Hang on one sec. I may have misspoken.
Mr. Mayor, so I think when
we need
it needs to be limited to condition number 1 as it relates to any of those matters.
I was wrong. You have to do these one at a time.
Okay.
Well,
I apologize.
And I guess just to clarify, Mr. Mayor, so we had, the motion to reconsider was limited just to condition number 1. So as it relates to any of A, B, or C, that we might also separate them, but any comment should be in relation to the dust control.
Okay.
Which was
So
condition number 1.
if you wish to speak to the dust control more, you have time. You're okay? Okay. Thank you, sir. Anyone else wish to be heard on this particular item? Are there questions for Director Johnson at this point? All right. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
So Mayor, as a point of clarification, so items A, B, and C need to
Be done
all
individually.
reconsidered, yes, and so A does relate to the condition of the dust control, correct? Or do they have to vote for the dust control separate?
We have to vote for A, B, and C, but we're only discussing them as they relate to
dust
condition number
control.
1.
So
Yes.
essentially, I was out of order when I suggested it was all right to discuss other matters. We're simply speaking to dust control as it relates to items A, B, and C.
Right, so the first motion would be for item A.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay.
So can we call the roll on item A?
Yes. Counselor Villarreal.
Yes.
Counselor Beta.
Yes.
Counselor Ives.
Yes.
Counselor Zendel. Counselor Rivera. Counselor Romero Worth.
Yes.
Counselor Vihel Coppler.
Yes.
Mayor Weber.
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Now we're looking at item B, but it is still limited not to whether we like the design, but strictly to the question of dust control as it relates to that part of our prior considerations.
Correct.
So are we now taking testimony on dust control with relation to item B, or are we closed on that?
I believe the public hearing was for all three.
All right. So let us consider item B. Is there any questions for the director about item B from the council?
Move to approve.
Second.
All right.
Okay.
Call the roll, please.
Counselor Abeta.
Yes.
Counselor Ives.
Yes.
Counselor Zendel. Yes. Counselor Rivera. Yes. Counselor Romero Worth. Counselor Vihel Coppler.
Yes.
Counselor Villarreal.
Yes.
Mayor Weber.
Yes.
The motion has been approved and Resolution 2018-59A, because it's reconsidered, is approved.
Okay, now we go to item C. And before I do want to ask you a question, if I may. So we've heard about concern about dust. My impression is that the whole point of this is to do a much better job of controlling the dust. This should make matters better than what they have been in the past.
Mayor, members of the council, that is correct. This does give us objective, quantifiable standards that were not in existence in the past.
So if there have been concerns expressed about the extent to which dust and other debris have been blown across, this will be an improvement over the current state of affairs.
It certainly will.
Thank you for the clarification. All right, so we're at item 6.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, please.
I ask one additional question, which is, right now we're considering it as a condition in this one proceeding, but are we going to be adopting new rules as part of land use that would incorporate these changes?
Yes, as soon as the engineering supervisor, Councilor Ives and members of the governing body, as soon as the engineering supervisor position is filled, we'll be updating our dust control regulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good clarification. Appreciate it. All right. Are there other questions, or are we prepared to deal with 6C?
Move to approve.
Please call the roll.
Councilor Ives?
Yes.
Councilor Lindell? Councilor Rivera? Councilor Romero Worth?
Yes.
Councilor Vihel Coppler?
Yes.
Councilor Villarreal?
Yes.
Councilor Beta?
Yes.
Mayor Weber?
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Thank you. Seeing no other business before this body, although there appears to be people wishing to go trick-or-treating now, I would like to adjourn our proceedings.